What is the next right step? And are there any blind spots that you see that I may not be aware of? These are the two most common themes that I've seen in my coaching over the last 7 years. Now, what's going on is that years ago, this wasn't as prevalent as it is now. People were just out there shooting from the hip. They were like, I've got this wild and crazy idea, and I'm going to go after it. And then they were just out there with reckless abandon, going out and following their heart, following their passion. I've been there, done that so many different times. Now, in my own life, whenever I've had that inner knowing of what I want to go and do next, and back in the days when I wasn't surrounded with all of the people who I could turn to and seek their counsel on what they think about my path, I just went forward anyway. And by the way, since having many advisors that I can turn to for wise counsel, even then, I've chosen to proceed most times with wild abandon to their pointing out of blind spots that I might not be aware of. Where am I going with all of this? Well, let's just put it this way. At the beginning of a very high percentage of my coaching conversations, I will ask a question something like this. Hey, we have 90 minutes together. What would you most want to walk away from by the end of this conversation? And the number one answer I've ever received, and it comes up maybe 7 out of every 10 times I ask that question. The first word that comes out is clarity. There's typically a short pause, and then they say something along the lines of, I need clarity. I'd like to walk away from this conversation with clarity about exactly what is the next right step for me to ... whatever their goal is, whatever their objective is, whatever it is that they're pursuing. And I think the fact that they think there is a right answer and that there are obviously if there is a right next step, then doesn't that somehow suppose that there's an infinite number of wrong steps that one could take? And if subconsciously you're asking the question, what is the exact next right step for me? Doesn't that presuppose that you could be making all sorts of mistakes? And in fact, isn't that the message that's being promulgated? Is that the right word? That's being promoted heavily in all of these things. Let me show you how to succeed. Let me show you how to achieve. Let me show you how to do and to stop wasting your time and all this other stuff. I can teach you the exact framework, the exact formula for how I built this thing that you now want to do. I can show you exactly the way I've done it. And I will teach you. I've formulated it, and it's systematized. I can share my documents with you. Let's do this thing. And so there are so many people out there creating content, selling courses, selling everything under the sun that says they've got the formula for the next right thing. This is the next thing you need to do, the next right thing for you to focus on. This is the next right direction for you. This is the next right thing to be ahead of the curve. You don't miss the boat on AI. Don't miss the boat on, back in the day it was crypto. Back in the day it was Web3. The number of things that people say, don't miss the boat on this. And, I missed the boat on, what were those things called? gosh, everybody was into them for like 18 months. I can't even remember what they're called. Hold on. It was a part of crypto, then Web3, and then everybody was trading these things. What are they? This is how important they are today that they're not even talked about enough today that I can't remember the word. The number of people say, Cliff, you really want to, I had so many people, you really want to get into, what are they called? Gary V had them, the V Friends. I know that they're called, there's the Bored Apes Project, and I can't even remember what they're called right now. That is hilarious. That's how much interest I took into them. But I know you know the word. It's hilarious that I can't think of it, but it's so unimportant. And the fact that you do know what I'm talking about. But yeah, it was something you had to use. You had to buy them using Ether, and it's a digital version of now. Okay, now I'm going to look it up. So let's see here. I'm just going to go over to ChatGPT, and I'm going to ask. A couple of months back, maybe a year or so ago, everybody was talking about Bored Apes and Gary V's such and such projects. It was a part of crypto and Web3, and you had to pay Ether or some other cryptocurrency to buy them. What are those things called? Oh, I'm using my text-to-speech dictation service here. And so NFT, there we go, non-fungible tokens. NFTs. And I know you were out there screaming, it's like, Cliff, it's NFTs. But yeah, I watched several of my close friends and peers devote a lot of time, effort, and energy into those. And it's just, Cliff, you definitely want to get on this. This is the next big thing. That this is how the currency of the future is, and here's a course on how you can create your own NFTs, and this might be a way for you to sell event tickets in the future. And I'm like, I'm okay with missing the boat on the front end of this. And there were those who were arguing, Cliff, the next right step is to make sure that you're up on fill in the blank. And it's not just NFTs, crypto, or Web3, or any of this other stuff. It's just, it seems like the more content we consume from others, the more others are excited about a thing. And I think that's great. I love that new things are being created all of the time. I love that people are exploring new paths. I love when people find something that they go hyper-focus on. I'm certainly no stranger to hyper-focusing on topics, getting excited about it. One of the things, though, that I hope that I've always had as a part of my messaging is that you don't need a podcast. Like back in the day, I was all in on podcasting back in 2005, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Well, all the way up until about 2015, I was all in. So for, what was that? 10 years? Yeah, 10 full years. I would say I was all in on podcasting. And today I'm still in podcasting. Am I all in? When I mean all in, I mean that even financially, I stake my income around the industry of podcasting. I don't do that today. And I haven't since 2017. And I hadn't wanted to since 2015. You see, in 2015, after a decade of producing countless episodes of podcast audio content, and after teaching thousands upon thousands upon thousands about how to launch a podcast and answering their questions related to the technical aspects of getting a great sounding podcast launched, that was my focus professionally for a decade of my life. There was a time when I'm like, you know what? This is not what I want to do. There are a number of people out there who are convinced that starting a podcast is the next right thing for them. They were told, this is your next right step. And not because I convinced them of that. It was because somebody else was. Somebody took a course and they said, listen, there's nothing you can do that's going to be more powerful than launching a podcast. Here's how I can tell you why that is true. And then what they do is they proceed to tell you how it was true for them, what their experience was with blogging or with this or that prior to podcasting, and how they basically were slowly building an audience and this and that and all this other stuff. And then when they finally got around to launching their podcast, it didn't take off like instantly, but within, and it's like usually within 30 days or 60 days, I started to see this shift. And then within 6 months, this happened. And then all of that. And what none of that takes into account. And by the way, let me finish that. This is all kind of I'm grouping together about 25, 30 different people out there promoting podcasting back in the day. What they would do is they would say, okay, if I had to start a business over today, I would skip this, I would skip that, I would skip this, and I would just launch a podcast today. That's what I would, if I could go back and talk to my younger self, I would have just skipped all of that and I would have launched a podcast. And here's my framework, and this is why I think really if you want to start today, where you should start is a podcast. Now, by the way, this was going on for the entire time that I was teaching people how to successfully launch a podcast. The reality is that today it's more along the lines you should be full-on video production on YouTube. It's like, or for a while it was a TikTok thing, and it's always going to change. There's always going to be the thing. Here's the thing that you should do to succeed. And it's usually people are seeking this advice from somebody who has been around for decades. And they've been investing time, effort, and energy on a lot of different platforms. And what most people don't understand is that why whatever current technology or framework or formula or thing they're pushing as what they believe is the right step for anybody today, the reason why it's working for them today is not because they started with it and found success, but so much of it is what they learned along the way. I mean, there's the accumulated experience of what were their previous steps that they took. And there were times before what they're doing now, if you would have asked them this, then they would have said, this is my next step. Here's the situation. All advice that you are given by anyone else is autobiographical. What I mean by that is they're sharing from their own experience, their own walked path, their own map that they've been making along their own journey of the turns that they took. But what their map that they're referencing does not take into account are all the paths that they did not choose, that they could have gone down. So for somebody to come to me and say, hey, Cliff, I need you to help me validate this thing I'm thinking of. I want you to help me gain clarity. Is this the next right step? And in many ways, some of those people are looking by the end of that conversation, at the beginning of the conversation, they're hoping that I will agree with them. And I never do that. Well, okay, that might be a strong statement. They may actually convince me based upon the energy, and I'm like, hey, based upon what I'm seeing here, based upon what I'm witnessing, it seems to me that you feel that the next right step for you is this, and gosh, the way that you are feeling fully in your body, fully aligned with this. I can't say if it's the right thing for you, but gosh, if I was feeling what you are feeling and saying the things that you're saying, this is probably what I would go do. But even then, I would not call that the right step, the next right step. I'm thinking right now in raw, real time, authentically here. I have this program called Building an Online Business, and it's an 11-step formula for how to build an online business. And the reason why that came about is because I saw a number of people who back in the day wanted to launch a podcast, and they were convinced that that was the next right step for them as a result of being influenced not by my marketing efforts, but by what they heard from other people. But when they learned that I actually had the highest ranked course on personal coaching to walk you through every single step in the process of the technical field, they chose to hire me to take that step that they had been told by others was the next right step. And ironically, what was interesting to me was it was a very small percentage, but there were a number of people who by the end of my 4-week group training program called Podcasting A to Z, where by the end of the 4 weeks, they actually had clarity for themselves that within their own heart, that podcasting isn't something that they wanted to pursue. And it was through the questions that I asked them and the conversations that we had that helped them gain that clarity. And ironically, those people still write to me and say, wow, Cliff, one of the best investments in an online course I ever made was the $2,000 I spent to be in your 4-week Podcasting A to Z course, where I signed up and invested $2,000 so that I could successfully launch a podcast because I was influenced by such and such. But by the end of the course, I chose not to do that. I went down this route instead. And I got to tell you, wow, I am so glad I never published that podcast. And over time, it became more and more clear how many people were not clear that podcasting was something that seemed aligned for them, but they'd been convinced by others this is the right thing to go do. And so they were signing up for it. And I'm like, you know what if I just help people find out what it is that they want, what it is they truly desire, find out what their soul wants to create, not what the world or other people or this mass consciousness of internet marketing, online business, entrepreneur, solopreneur community is telling them they should want or how they should define success. This has been going on since the E-Myth days and the Rich Dad, Poor Dad days and the entrepreneur EOS operating system and all this other stuff's a modern version of it. There are all of these things out there that says this is what success looks like. I would say that, maybe 7 out of 10 people that I coach with today believe that success as a business owner is owning a business that you never have to work in. That today, this prevailing idea is that you are not an entrepreneur unless you own a business that can operate without you ever showing up, or some variation of that. And while, there's a handful of people out there, percentage-wise, who operate in life in that way, and that is a path that they've chosen, that doesn't necessarily mean just because that framework is out there and it can work and that there are steps that can get you there, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's aligned with your own soul, what you want to create and the lifestyle you want to live. The number of business owners that I work with today who are incredibly financially successful, who are they are sought after when it comes to their success. Many people, worship them is not the right word, but many people, what is the right word? They're like celebrities. And everybody's like, man, if I could live any lifestyle I would want, and they would fill in the name of one of my clients. And the ironic thing is that I've been working with my clients, and the number of times that some of them have said to me, it's like, you know what? At some point, I have to ask myself, do I even want to have this business anymore? I wonder what it would be like if I didn't have to manage this team. I wonder what it would be like if I was just a freelancer again and I could go back to just working with a handful of clients doing this thing that I always loved to do. But today I'm doing all of this leadership stuff. I'm doing all these other things. And I really lost the ability to sit back and spend hours of day getting into a flow state creating. I miss that. Instead, I'm in all of these meetings with all these team members, and oh my gosh, the number of headaches, and it's just I just have these conversations, and then yet, by the way, a couple of conversations later, without the person I'm talking to, let's just say right now, they're saying, okay, so here's the situation. I have been creating such and such kind of content. I've been doing this kind of work. I've been focused in this niche for X period of time. And you know what? I'm nowhere near as proficient or as well known as fill in the blank. And they'll give me a name of the person. What they don't know is that person is a client of mine. And so I'm not going to sit there and say, well, this person is a client of mine. So I just listen and I'm like, okay. And then they go on to say, it's like, here's the thing. I just want to get to the place where so-and-so is. And then I'm like, okay, let me ask you this. If you were to get to the place where so-and-so is, what would that do for you? What would you then be? How would you feel then that you don't have access to feeling now? And I hear words like freedom, security. I just feel like there'd be less stress in my life. There'd be all of this other stuff. And I need to figure out what is the next right step that get me closer to living that person's lifestyle. And basically what I hear them say is like, I would like more freedom in my schedule. I'd like to experience less stress on a daily basis. I'd like to have more predictability in my income and all this other stuff. And what I can't tell them is that I just had a coaching conversation 2 weeks ago with that person, and they want the same things that you are stating that you want. Isn't that ironic? Anyway, I'm veering off. This is what happens when you get unscripted, Cliff, and unoutlined, Cliff, is that I've veered off into, what is it that you truly want territory. But the purpose of this unscripted episode is to talk about this idea that there is no right step. There is no next right step for you. And if that brings anxiety to you, then I'm sorry, but it's, in my perspective, my perception of the world, I just don't think there's a next right step for you. I think there are just next steps for you. I think there's what is the most aligned next step. And what I mean with aligned to what? So where is your alignment? Are you aligning yourself to the expectations of others? Are you aligning yourself to the definition of success that others are consistently conditioning you to think along those lines? And the question I often help people really dig into, the work that I've chosen to focus exclusively the next season of my life is, do you even know who you are? Have you even been introduced to your true authentic self beyond the ego that is running your life? And by the way, the ego, we could talk about all sorts of different layers and understanding of what an ego is. And from different perspectives, we could talk about a spiritual perspective or a psychological perspective. And there's all sorts of layers. But what I'm speaking about right here in this very moment is this identity, this persona, this mask that you have developed in the world that is the accumulation of belief after belief and all of the circumstances, all of the things of how you come to perceive the world based upon all of the things that you've been conditioned and taught is acceptable and not acceptable, and all the things to help you fit in the places where you most want to fit in society and in social structures and all this other stuff. This construction of who you think you are, this identity, it's not necessarily in most cases, the authentic you. It is a version of yourself that has been created that will be the most socially accepted by others. And also the one that has bought into that, you know what, I am very much afraid of all of these things that could go wrong in my life. And society says that if I actually do these things, then I don't have to fear. Well, the fact that society has taught you that you have to fear is an issue in and of itself. Fear is a choice. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't real danger for your physical well-being, but there's a majority of people's fears that they have, their anxiety, their worries, their doubts, their stress, they have nothing to do with anything that would ever bring you true harm outside of your belief of being accepted by others in society and what would they perceive. This is why a lot of my coaching conversations, I'm talking to people, it's like, I don't think I could actually go out and do that. I don't think I could say that. I don't think I could create that. I fear what my family would say. I don't think I could leave the day job. What if I get out there? These people are going to say these things. That what if this? What if that? And this is the ego, and one of the roles ROLE of the ego is the protector, the guardian. It's there to keep you safe, and that ego is helping you develop all of this construct of your interface with the world to stay in alignment so that you can vibe and fit in and be accepted with whatever it is that is your worldview there. Though many people haven't yet been introduced to their authentic self, the soul layer identity without all of the conditioning. That voice within that has a unique journey, a unique mission in this world, if you will, a unique desire of what you as a soul came here to create in this world before you were conditioned that this is crazy, this is not acceptable, this won't ever work, and all this other stuff. And you could, your ego could point to all these other people who might have tried what it is that you do. It's like, man, if money was no object and I didn't have to worry about anybody and everybody supported me, all this other, and I could just wake up every day and do what I want to do, what would I most want to do? And if you have an answer to that question, which ironically, so many people do not have an answer to that question. But if you had an answer to that question and then you have hesitancy, and all sorts of voices or thoughts in your mind or fears that come up or resistance to going and doing that thing, that's your ego. That's the thing that's trying to protect you. No, you can't do you. Be this version. Filter yourself this way. And so much of everything is, it's like, okay, well, let me find out from everyone else what their experience is. And maybe by talking to enough other people, I can get clarity about what the next thing I should be putting my time, effort, and energy into. And if I can get if I can get enough people that I personally resonate with, if I can get enough people who I trust, if I can get enough people who I respect, if they will confirm to me that what I'm thinking is right, then I'll go. Now, at some level, it's like, well, at least maybe if I go do it and I don't succeed, it's not like I'm going to blame them, but at least I can actually say, well, all these people told me that this, and it kind of, your ego is like, hey, I'm looking for a way to psychologically ease my pain and suffering if what I choose to go do next as my next step, if I don't succeed, at least I can ease the pain and suffering by saying, well, this is what I was told to do, and I'm not fully at blame. As if there's any blame to be had. As if there's anything wrong. Oh, goodness. I'm opening up so many cans of worms. I'm hoping that by me sharing these unscripted, unfiltered episodes that I am pressing all sorts of buttons. And I hope that it is opening up all sorts of cans of worms, because the thing is we need to air out all of the stuff that we've accumulated through our lifetime, these thoughts and beliefs from others, that there is one true path. There is one true path for how to succeed in business. The reality is that there are a lot of people out there who have businesses where, quite frankly, they don't ever go into their office, and they don't really need to show up, and they can, and they're wildly successful, wealthy beyond their imagination. They could actually never work another day in their life if they wanted to, and they're set financially. And by the way, I know many of those people. I've had many of those clients, and you want to know what? There are some of them who have that exact situation in life, and they experience peace, love, and joy, and the feeling of abundance and fulfillment every single day. And then I know those who actually have all of the same scenario when it comes to they never have to work, they need no money, financially secure, and all this other stuff. But I know some of those that I've worked with that are filled with constant stress, worry, anxiety, doubt, fear of losing it all, and super overly concerned about anything that anyone might say that could cause them to damage their reputation. And then I know people who are out there doing their own freelance work, and quite frankly, they've been super attentive to saving, and while they may not be independently wealthy and never need to work another day in their life, but if anything was to happen to them, they've done enough investing and stuff like that quite frankly, they'd get by, and they would be somewhat comfortable if they couldn't work anymore. And I know many people I've worked with like that. And those people, ironically, there are some who experience peace, love, and joy, and a feeling of abundance. And they also feel just absolute peace, like they feel fulfilled. And I know people who are in that same situation, and yet there's no amount of money that they could actually save. There's no amount of investment that has yet been able to solve the issues of their lack of peace and their all this anxiety and fear and worry about what other people would say and stuff like that. So it's not external circumstances. It's not the type of business you have. It's not the amount of income you have. By the way, I know people who are out there living, day to day, wondering where their next paycheck is. And ironically, there are those who are out there living day to day wondering where's the next paycheck coming from. And there are some who live every single day with peace, love, joy, a feeling of abundance, and an absolute sense of fulfillment that they are just flowing with life. And then there are those who don't know where their next paycheck is, and they are stressed out, worried, anxious, and fearful, and afraid that maybe what is wrong with me? What are all the things that I've done that have caused people to not ever want to work with me? And it is all, so it doesn't matter professionally where you are in the world. The question is where are you internally? Where are you internally? Do you know your authentic self? Do you have unconditional love for yourself? Do you know yourself? Do you know what your soul desires? Do you know what makes your soul sing? Do you know what makes your soul come alive? Do you know what it is that gets you up excited to start your next day? If so, if you have that, and you have the ability to hear your own inner voice speak louder than all of the stored voices in your subconscious mind that are attracted and magnetically charged to this ego persona of what you think is the acceptable thing out in the world, all of those voices in your head telling you, if you could hear your own, if you had clarity about who you are and what you truly desire to be in this world, what you truly desire to create next in this world, you would always have clarity about what to do next, what to do now, or what not to do, what to be now. And there would be no concern at all about validating this from anyone else because nobody else knows the authentic core you. Only you do. And if you could tune into that voice more consistently, when I sit here and think, it's like, okay, there are so many different things I could be doing today. There's somebody who reached out to me who's waiting. He says, Cliff, I'd love to get a proposal of what it would look like for us to have an ongoing paid coaching relationship. That's in my to-do list, or my potential to-do list. There was an email that came in from a friend related to some content that I just created, and we've been going back and forth, and I could have done that. And then I'm like, okay, or I have this podcast episode idea on there is no right step. And, you know, this idea of, are there any blind spots that you're aware of? And I'm going to get to that part in this. This is the problem with, not problem, it's the benefit of a unscripted, unoutlined episode from Cliff Ravenscraft. The fact is I'm going to get to this thing eventually somewhere in here, but the reality is I hit record earlier today. I woke up, I went for a long walk with my wife because that felt like the most aligned thing to do this morning. Something we've been doing every morning, Monday through Friday. Came back, took a very casual, laid-back approach to getting showered, getting dressed, and all this other stuff. And then I'm like, you know what? I don't feel like breakfast is something I'm really into right now. I think I'm just going to go down to my office. And the next thing I'm like looking at my thing, it's like, you know what? I'm going to respond to this email. Is that the right thing? I don't know. There is no, I don't believe in the next right thing. And then I'm like, it's been a day and a half since this individual asked me for a written proposal of what are the options of having me as his paid coach. And I'm like, I'm not feeling that right now. Now, and then I'm like, well, what about recording the podcast? Yes. Okay. As soon as I contemplated hitting the record button and speaking into this episode, that felt aligned. It's like, okay, now is this the right thing to do? Who determines that? There is no right or wrong thing to do. There's just the thing I'm doing or the thing that I'm going to do. And this is the thing that feels most alive for me right now, is to record this. And then after this, I'll probably publish it and all this other stuff. And I will probably respond and give a proposal to this individual after all of that. Or at some point today, I'm being a guest. I have plenty of time. So at 2:30 p.m. today, I'm going to be a guest on somebody's podcast. And we're going to chat about whatever it is they want to chat about. But what I'm getting at is, if you're waiting for clarity on the exact next right step, chances are you are missing so many opportunities to experience life. If you're waiting for the next right step before you take any actions, that's it. You're missing life. Because when it comes down to it, there is no right step. Now, some will argue, it's like, well, when I took this step, I got this result, and I really like that result. So obviously, I want to make more of those, and that's what I define as a right step. Well, here's the problem. That doesn't account for the growth that's necessary. What I can share with you is that I have experienced in my own life, and I've witnessed in the lives of everyone else that I've been observing, because I've been an observer of human nature and the human condition, if you will, and other people's journeys professionally through life. And quite frankly, there's a lot of growth that needs to happen for you to learn how to handle certain situations and circumstances. So one of what I'm getting at is, I think one of the most dangerous things that could possibly happen is let's just say somebody's been in the corporate world for the last 25 years of their life. They've never once been self-employed. They've never once had to do all of the marketing, all of the HR, all of the content, everything. I mean, just like everything. If somebody who's been in corporate for the last 25 years, they developed an incredibly amazing expertise in a particular field, then they become full-time self-employed. I think one of the most dangerous things could happen is if that person was then invited saying, you know what, we would love to sell you our business. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. You know what? Because of my 25 years in corporate, I've amassed an incredible amount of savings. You know what? I've got a couple $1 million in my retirement. And I'm going to take $800,000 and I'm going to buy your business. And now all of a sudden they've got a business that's generating, hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue, and it's got a small team and all this other stuff and blah, blah, blah. And everything seems to be smooth and running. It's like, man, this is the perfect business. And then they're out there operating that business, and the first big, let's just say, challenge comes along. And it's a significant challenge. And that challenge, let's just say it's something that could potentially cost the company $1.8 million. If they have no experience in handling $25,000 problems or $100,000 problems and all of this other stuff, and they've never been in a situation where they could regulate their nervous system such that these things don't trigger them into a fight or flight reactionary state at some lower level, it's not a very pleasant idea for me to sit there and to witness somebody who is facing their first entrepreneurial challenge at a $1.8 million stakes, and then to see them kind of be caught off guard by that, and then to freak out and be reactionary and start saying and doing things out of reaction that only makes matters worse, that places blame, that causes them to lose half their employees and all this. It's like, and before they know it, the business is completely folded. It's now going to go bankrupt. It's closed down, and they're personally responsible for the $1.8 million. And when you think about that, now they've lost all. These are the things that I see. I witness these. This is not hypothetical. I see this stuff in the world. And what I'm getting at is, many times the next right thing for you to do would be for you to take whatever aligned action you feel called to do, and the results may be what you would perceive to be terrible. You might perceive the results from your next aligned step to be devastating. You may find them to be incredibly disappointing, and you might actually find yourself triggered into a negative emotional state, a negative reaction to the scenario. But every path that you choose is the right path. So wait a second. What if the title is "There is no right next step"? What if I were to tell you that every step that you take next is the right step for you. I did not see that coming when I started the recording of this podcast. That it doesn't matter what step you take, every step you take next is the right step for you. And in that way, there is no such thing as failure. There's only the results that you're going to get. That whatever action you take next, whatever step you take next, you're going to have an idea of what you want. And then you're going to take the results that you got. And I want you to think about this when you think about how a child learns to walk. I have not yet seen anybody produce a course for parents. It's like, okay, here's the step-by-step framework for how you teach your child. Okay, you got to get them these shoes. All right. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give them this brace. And then what you're going to do is buy them this headgear. And you're going to buy them this. And you need to make sure that the degrees of the surface is exactly at this degrees. And if you do this, your child's first step will lead to the success of the second step. And from that day forward, from your child's first step, they will never fall down. There's no such. Do you see how every step a child learning to walk, even the steps where they fall on their face, where some of them end up getting stitches in their forehead because they cracked their skull on the edge of a coffee table, all of those are the next right step. They provide feedback. Life provides feedback. There isn't right steps, wrong steps. There's just action, results. And we perceive these things to be bad or good. Oh my gosh, what if somebody saw me fall down? What if I fail publicly? What if I have said this in the past and I believed it fully then, and now I'm actually saying this, and people come from my past and say things that I once said before? Won't I be humiliated? Well, the humiliation is a choice. And it is usually a choice of the ego. The ego is the one is humiliated. Your soul, the authentic you, is never humiliated. And so the work that I'm trying to help people with today is to help people find alignment with their soul so that you won't be shaken. At your core, your authentic self is pure, it is blameless, it is love, it is peace, it is joy, it is fulfilled. At your core, that is your authentic identity. Now, when I grew up, I was told that for decades of my life that I'm a human and I am totally depraved and that I'm in the need of some external fixing. All right? I no longer adopt to that way of perceiving my authentic self. Now, there's things that I've come to, nuances to understanding those teachings, and I can find alignment with how, depending on how you use certain words and certain phrases and language and all, and the fact that language is just limited anyway. But the reality is that at my core, if one could just be born again to our authentic self before we accepted all of the conditioning and the thoughts of everyone else and all their limitations and all of their ideas of what we must be to be accepted by them and society and culture and all this other stuff. If we could be born again to our authentic nature, our authentic soul identity, if we could get aligned with that, we would never have to ask anyone else outside of us to validate and give us clarity on what the next right step is. We would hear that voice from within. By the way, I'm going to get to the second part of the title of this episode, the proposed title. And so occasionally, quite frequently, whether it's in a group session or in one-on-one. Somebody will say, okay, what do you most want? I'll say, what do you most want? And they'll say, okay, so here's what I need. I need clarity on the exact right next step I need to take to fill in the blank. And then I give them some sort of much shorter spiel about the fact that what if there is no next right step? What if there's only the step that feels most aligned to you? Would you like to explore what that might be? And they're like, okay, Cliff. Okay, so, that's not what. Okay, so I do. Matter of fact, some people are very, very honest and say, "Oh my gosh, I don't actually know what it is that I want." And that's a revelation, and that's a fun conversation. But then when somebody says, okay, I do know what I want. I do know what the next, I do have this sense, this calling within, this voice, this nudge. They're not always using that language. Some are self-aware, or authentic self-aware, I should say. And they are very much in tune with what their soul desires to go do. And yet their ego is still in the driver's seat, and the ego says, "Hey, okay, so, the authentic part of me, the soul part of me, wants to go do this, but my ego wants to ask this question: do you guys see any blind spots? Or actually, what I want to know is, I want to ask, are there any blind spots? This is the actual phrasing. Are there any blind spots that I'm not aware of? And every time I hear that question, that inner knowing, that voice of truth within me just says, yes, absolutely, there are blind spots that you're not aware of. By definition, if you're not aware of something, you are blind to it. I don't care who you are. You have blind spots. If you are perceiving at a human level with your mind and you're thinking about things, if you're relying on your thinking mind, you have blind spots. And then it's like, well, are there any ones? And the problem with asking the question is like, do I have any blind spots that I'm not aware of that you think you should point out to me? And in some ways, what's coming up for me is like, is there any excuse as to why I shouldn't go and do this thing that my ego is telling me is dangerous? That my ego is telling me there is a reason for me to feel and sense danger, to be afraid of what might happen. And in many cases, when I see people asking, especially in a group session, because I'm not quick to point out blind spots. I like to ask questions that bring greater clarity to what they want and what they desire, and to find a place to where, hey, is this something that you are so authentically aligned with that no matter what the results are, no matter what the outcome, no matter how people respond to it, would it be worth it? I'm not one that ever likes the idea of saying, well, this could happen to you, this could happen to you, here are all the things that could. I don't want to paint that picture. There's a part of your authentic self that knows what it wants, and I don't think there's a need to load yourself up with a picture of all of the ways that this might not be the right thing. I think this is what is holding us back. And this, I want to get consensus from the group, or even validation from another person to say, yeah, this is okay. No, there's no blind spots. Go on into this. You know what? Nothing in this world is guaranteed. I don't care how many times it's worked for other people. I mean, you could technically, if anything's ever proven this positive, it was the era of COVID. And when that happened, it's like, okay, you could have built a business that it's like, okay, I want to build a conference business, and I want to. Ironically, I was growing conferences at the time, but this isn't my story. This is, let's just say, well, actually, let's just hypothetically say that in 2018, when I did Free the Dream conference, let's just say my goal was to turn it into, I'm going to do an annual conference once a year, every year. and I'm going to turn that into the most profitable venture, and that's what I'm going to do. And I just need to ask some people, what do you think about this? Do you see any blind spots? And they might say, well, yes, Cliff, there's this, there's that, there's this, there's that, all this other stuff. And then you go down this path. And I'm recognizing as I'm saying this, it's like, okay, here's the blind spots that you're not seeing. You could have this, you could have this. But here's the thing. I don't like where I'm going with this, because this isn't a great example of what I'm getting at. The thing is what we don't know. Okay. Actually, I do know where I was going with that. See, this is unscripted, unedited, unfiltered. I'm going to go with this. Where I was going is that somebody may say, okay, yeah, here's all the things you need to do. You need to go do these things. You need to do this, and you need to do that, and do this, and do that. And let's just say they gave you all the blind spots. You find, and you went down their path, and you succeeded. You've built this annual conference, and now pretty much your annual conference is the main thing, the only thing you really focus on these days. And then all of a sudden you're signed up, and you had a special deal. You're going to start doing these quarterly, and you're going to sign all sorts of contracts for the next 3 to 5 years with all of these venues, so you can lock them in so that they're a known quantity. And there's all sorts of things that says, hey, there's this cancellation fee, there's this cancellation fee, this is how much you still owe us no matter what, and all this other stuff. And then it's like you got all of this worked out, and everything's going great. It's like, I figured it out. This was the right path. And I'm so glad all these people helped me figure out all of the things to, think. And the thing is that then a COVID comes along. And I happen to have many friends, including myself, who were heavily invested at conferences, in annual conferences, or even more frequent live events. And what I'm getting at is there are always blind spots. There are always blind spots. Doesn't matter how successful, what the long track record is. I mean, we do not know what tomorrow holds. Heck, I don't know what the next 3 minutes holds. It is an unknown quantity. There are all sorts of blind spots. Was this the right podcast episode? Gosh, I put an episode out 3 days ago, and then, or 2 days ago, and then I put out an episode actually 3 days ago, then 2 days ago, and I don't think I put out an episode yesterday. But I'm thinking about putting this episode out today. Is that the right thing? Is it the next right step? And what I'm getting at is there is no next right step, or every step I take is the next right step. It's right because it's the one I chose. And even if I chose it for the wrong reasons, even if I chose it because it was validating others, so many things you might need to learn in life is to stop living your life so that you can have everything you do validated by others. All of it leads eventually to finding and discovering your true authentic self, your soul identity. Who are you without the masks? And once you find that, you'll find that there's a voice that speaks within that is so clear. If there's one thing that people do find when they work with me in a coaching conversation, they do find clarity. But it wasn't because of something I said, and it certainly wasn't some path I prescribed. All I did was help them hear the voice within, and then all of a sudden the answer was obvious. And it had nothing to do with whether I agreed with it or not. The number of times somebody's been in a coaching conversation with me, and then they're like, okay, this is what I truly, if I didn't care what anybody thought about me, if I didn't care about this, if this is what I would want to create. And it doesn't, the number of times where it's like, I would never want that. I would never go down that route. I would never go down that path. And yet that's my ego saying, it's like, that's not aligned with me. And that's fine, but it's what's aligned with them. And yeah. And if they ask me, are there blind spots? Yes, there are blind spots. If you're thinking at any level about this with your mind is deleting, distorting, and generalizing a majority of the data that comes into your conscious mind. and it's doing that for your benefit. And sure, I'm not saying that I don't ever share stories about what my experiences have been and stuff like that. It's like, oh wow, I never thought about it from that perspective. And some people say, well, that's the kind of blind spots that I was thinking of. And I'm like, well, yeah, and there are plenty more and stuff like that. But I'm not suggesting there's not value in sharing your ideas with others. But if you're actually I think the message here is, don't wait to take that next step until you know for a fact it's going to work out, that it's the right one. And don't only take steps that other people approve of or validate for you. And by the way, if somebody shares what they perceive to be a blind spot and something you should be cautious of, if your heart and your soul still says, no, I see that, but I'm still moving forward anyway. The number of times when there were blind spots pointed out to me, but I proceeded anyway, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I followed my heart. I'm glad I followed my true, authentic self. And have there been times when I followed my authentic self and my ego was concerned and other people had warned this might happen, and they pointed out blind spots, and then all of a sudden I took those actions. I went out and authentically, transparently lived boldly into what I felt aligned to do, and there were significant, massive consequences from doing so? Yes. But you know what? I'm at peace. I'm at peace because I know what I'm doing is aligned. I know who I am at my core. And I know that whatever I'm doing, wherever I'm at, whoever I'm with, I'm always at the right place, at the right time, with the right people, doing the right thing. And I'm thrilled that you were here with me right now.